where I would wait to get blackout drunk and I would use substance and it looked like that. I would almost be waiting for that moment. And as soon as that moment arrived when everyone was drunk, that's when I was received. That was when I could speak my truth. I was in the toilet for like 2 hours, like right into myself around how this is not aligned anymore. And everyone was like, where have you been? And I was like, even in the high of the drug, it was a battle between feeling like, have I gone too serious or where's my joy? And it was this messy middle side. It looked like, oh, she's having great fun. She's just being free. She's being in her 20s. But on the inside, I was really depressed and not having any sort of form of connection. Or I just always remember being like, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? It's not a case of if the storm comes. It's a case of when the storm comes.
The storm's coming for everybody.
When I got back out into my world that I'd created, my old world, that was when I had my Feck it no more moment where I genuinely couldn't go operating in the old way that I used to operate.
Failure is like everything else in life, it's just between
never fail.
I need to know to get to where I want to go.
Kayli, welcome to the Feck it no more podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. Kayli, can I get you to introduce yourself to the viewers and the listeners?
Well, I'm Kayli Halliwell, or as known Kayli Halliwell Astrology, and I do astrology.
Kayli, I ask, is astrology something you always did? This show is very much about the Feck it no more moments that people have in their life. And I'm guessing whenever it comes to somebody that's doing astrology, it maybe didn't start out from birth doing astrology. So I'm guessing there was a Feck it no more moment in there before. Do you want to maybe share a little bit about your Feck it no more moment before we go too far for the viewers?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So my Feck it no more moment was very much during something that we call our Saturn return, which happens around like 29 to 31 years old. And I had my Saturn return in COVID. And that's when astrology kind of came to me. And I got balls deep in the study with the lockdown. I was in Melbourne. So obviously Melbourne was a harsh lockdown. And when I got back out into my world that I'd created, my old world, that was when I had my Feck it no more moment where I genuinely couldn't go operating in the old way that I used to operate.
Can I ask what your life was like just before that lockdown? What was Kayli like just before that kind of lockdown happened? What's happening in your life? What's going on?
I was the big time party ratbag in Melbourne, where I would probably go out 3 times a week, live for that moment, you know, work around the clock, be super exhausted and push myself through substance and drink and alcohol and just literally just be escaping constantly through that system, that cycle where I just wasn't being myself. I was trapped in this, honestly, like 11-year cycle. I moved to Melbourne or Australia in 2012 and I had my big sort of awakening a moment around 2021. So it was just a 11-year cycle of just literally living for the weekend and not really having any sort of connection at all. And on the outside, it looked like, oh, she's having great fun. She's just being free. She's being in her 20s. But on the inside, I was really depressed.
Really, really quick. I know you're enjoying the content. It's not like me to ask for help, but here it goes. We need your help to reach more people. We are finding the guests. People are coming on to share their story, and we need to get their message out to people who may be currently in that moment and needing to hear it. And I can't do that without you. Please, whichever platform you're looking on, there's a few things that you can really do to help us out. Hit that follow or subscribe button, depending on the platform. Hit the like button or the love button. The leave a reaction really helps us out. Most powerful is to leave a comment to say that you've either enjoyed the show, what you've taken away from it, what stood out for you, how it relates to your life, what you think other people would be able to get from this show. Things like that really do help us not just create a little bigger reach on platforms, but it also helps people that want to find our content relate to it before they even start watching. So a few ways that you can really help us grow and make meaningful impact to other people's lives. I'll let you get back to the show.
And not having any sort of form of connection, or I just always remember being like, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? And it was truly just not being myself and being so scared to be rejected if I was to be myself.
To be yourself. Yeah. Look, I've had that feeling of getting pulled towards something else quite a bit in my life as well. I always felt like this was something I should be doing, yet circumstances had me doing something else. Can I ask what you were doing before the change? What was your job at that point?
Hairdressing. So
Okay.
I've been in hairdressing since I was 16 years old, left school, and yeah, went straight into hairdressing.
Anything you do for me on the hairdressing front?
Definitely. Yeah, we can do a lot with that.
You mentioned, Kayli, being the depression from maybe not being aligned with yourself and that you were going through at the time. Can you tell us, for the listeners that may be listening and maybe feeling that kind of disconnection or not happy with what they're doing at the moment, what that looked like for you so that they can maybe relate with that?
So for me, I always had so much depth that I like to speak into, or I like to speak about things that are true and real and deep. And I would always feel so like almost like a block in my throat, like I couldn't speak my truth, or I would wait to get blackout drunk and I would use substance and it looked like that. I would almost be waiting for that moment. And as soon as that moment arrived when everyone was drunk, that's when I was received. That was when I could speak my truth and people would accept me in that moment. So that's kind of how it always looked, was this, drunk way of being able to relate to me.
Being able to connect with people and relate, yeah. And then I suppose whenever you weren't out partying or you weren't out with people, how was that leaving you feeling then?
Good question. I would remember then there would just be moments of, maybe going for brunch or going for non-substance using conversations. And I would always have this really, really anxious energy inside. And I would often maybe say things. And then after the catch up, I'd be like, oh, I can't believe I said that. Or I'd be beating myself up and have this cringe feeling within my energy. And I think the only way I was able to kind of form some sort of flow with my voice around that was either speaking about nostalgic times or old times. That was the only time that it felt peaceful on my energy. But anything else that I would want to speak about, I would never allow myself in a sober moment to speak into anything like that.
So you felt like you were very much having to be somebody else whenever you were outside, and yet whenever you were inside feeling that kind of depression and anxiety. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, depression and anxiety. Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about the energy that it takes to be somebody on the outside for other people to see. Does that take up a lot of space in your mind, and how does it leave you feeling at the end of a week? Like I know from my own experiences, I'm not a very social person anyway. So I would always have said I was an introvert. But because where I wanted to get to in life in my former careers, I had to push myself to be more sociable, to talk to more people, to do networking, to do things. And it used to leave me very much drained because it's not somebody who I naturally am, if that makes sense. And I'm wondering, did you experience anything similar?
Yeah, similar but different in terms of I've always had a more social energy, hence sort of going into hairdressing was the perfect kind of career to go into. But with that, there was a lot of masking that needs to be done, a lot of you're almost on stage as a hairdresser, so you have to be up and on and happy, and that kind of energy would filtrate out into all of my life, into all of my connections outside of that. And it's almost like I had to be, the energy felt like it's almost like it had to be here, and it was very suffocating. And then what would happen is I would get home, and I remember my housemate, she was very similar to me like that too, and we would both just literally crash. And order Uber Eats and just eat the anxiety, eat the emotions, and just zone out and forget that, anything existed.
Yeah, okay. So that energy of being, enjoying the people around you and the company around you, and especially at work, I'm guessing whenever that was taken away in the COVID times, it would have been quite a challenge for you, was it?
Yeah, for sure. That was when everything came up because there was no substance to put it down.
Yeah.
And what was really, really interesting in that time, it was them little moments in life where all of a sudden your soul comes in and saves you.
Yeah.
It's I don't even know, there's no logical explanation as to why I did this, but I knew as soon as we was going into lockdown that I would write an itinerary to do every day. So then I didn't completely go into an absolute deeper hole. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. Look, I think we should start with, because everybody has their own version of what that lockdown time was like during COVID. For myself, I remember getting stuck on a site in the Pilbara for a month at a time. But once we got back, then we were able to still go to work. We were still able to do things. So it was slightly different here in WA. I'm sure their listeners in America and back in the UK have had their experiences too. But can you tell us a little bit about what that lockdown looked like in Melbourne at the time that you were going through?
Yeah, it was really harsh. I think it ended up being like the most locked down place in the world.
It did go severe.
Yeah, we had like 3-month lockdowns at a time. And I remember then going back into the salon, you'd have them little break moments where you'd go back into the salon. It would only be for maybe like 2 weeks, 3 weeks until you was initiated into another 3-month lockdown. And I always just remember that feeling that came up and we all knew like it's happening again, you know? It's almost like Handmaid's Tale or something. It felt like that. And then we had like restrictions on who we could see. So we could only see people. Like you could only choose one friend. You could only spend an hour with them. You couldn't travel more than 5K outside of where you lived. We had to be at home by 8 p.m. It was full on. And for me, I just felt very different to a lot of people around that time, you know? A lot of people was happy to go with it, whereas I was like, very like, what are we not seeing here sort of thing, you know?
I suppose everything that you knew in terms of being able to go out socialising during the day in terms of your work and then out a few times a week as well at night, that's been removed from you. So it's a big chunk of your life gone. And like so many other people during COVID, I remember reading a stat that said it was probably one of the world's biggest periods where people did decide to just do something different, or what do I do now? I think that thinking time. And I experienced this whenever I took a month off around the time my friend told me he was passing away. All the thinking time that I had where I wasn't at work doing what I normally did gave me a lot of opportunities to bring up things that were maybe that I was too busy to deal with or face at a normal time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, astrologically around that time as well, we had a big thing that astrologers was talking about. It was the day that lockdown happened or the day that it was like breaking news. And there was this transit that happened, which was Pluto and Saturn was conjunct in Aquarius. Aquarius is all around, you know, freedom to the people, and Saturn is restriction, and Pluto is like intense restriction. So it was very reflected astrologically, and I think we've all moved into a complete new world ever since then.
Yeah, I definitely think that even the way that we do things, you know, having like this conversation wouldn't have been this way 20 years ago. So, okay, so you're going through it. What's the change process like during that? Did it happen straight after lockdown? What was your thought cycle as you go through that kind of journey of going, okay, I can't stay here, living the same way that I've normally lived? What was your thinking at that point?
Good question. It took me a while. It wasn't a quick initiation and a quick path for me. There was like all my ego came up to try and go back to my old life. You know, I would try and go back to, maybe I can have one drink, or maybe I can allow myself to be drunk. And I remember actually even at a works party and, you know, drugs was going round. And I remember being like, okay then. And then I remember as clear as anything, I was in the toilet for like 2 hours, like right into myself around how this is not aligned anymore. And everyone was like, where have you been? And I was like, even in the high of the drug, my higher self was like, this is, you know, and it was a battle between feeling like, have I gone too serious, or where's my joy? And it was this messy middle where it wasn't smooth process at all coming back out to the outside world. I was then confident enough to start speaking my truth, and all of the world that I created outside of myself, the connections, the job, everything, there was like confirmation on the outside that was rejecting the new self. So there was also that level to deal with, you know, the rejection piece that I had to deal with and keep moving past that. So it was a dance between, can I go back? Can I not? Can I go back? Can I not? You know?
Yeah. You've hit that moment where you go, okay, I can't go back to the way I was before. How did the people around you take it? Was there any pushback from people around you? Were there people asking you, what's wrong with you? Why have you changed? What's going on? Like, what did that look like for you? I have my own version of that, but for you, what did it look like?
Yeah, for sure. There was lots of remarks around astrology, for sure, where it was like the eye rolls, like, you're not going to speak about that again, or oh, here she goes again, or kind of just trying to brush it off. Like, there was a lot of that energy. Like really invalidating this big initiation that my soul and my ego was going through. It was very, like, I'm too much, constantly like too much, like eye roll, that kind of energy.
Yeah. And how was that impacting you then from the way people were responding to that? Were you double questioning yourself and doubting yourself? And is this the right thing to be doing? What did that look like?
Definitely, like, put like that whole entire chapter definitely tested my trust with people, where I found isolation safer because the connections that I'd only ever had was operating in the old version. And I had no evidence at all that there was going to be connections on the other side that was going to reflect the new version. So it kind of put me in a lot of isolation for a good while. I'd probably say like a lot of my weekends was just like on my own in nature. I had to go through a big loneliness portal. Yeah. And then, I'd say that chapter lasted from maybe 2021 till 2024, like a good 3 years.
It's a big period. Yeah, it's definitely a long period. Now, in walks in nature and being alone doesn't sound too terrible. I'm not going to lie for somebody that enjoys nature walks. But I do understand what you're saying. It's going from having this whole life of everybody's around you and you're constantly busy and you're talking and you're doing something, to then a long period of 3 years of finding yourself and really getting to understand yourself and feeling maybe that you have to withdraw from people in order to do that. I'm guessing was part of the process as well, was it?
Yeah, for sure. And in that time frame, I was, doing lots of modalities that was going deeper on things as well. I was going to like kinesiology and Reiki, and I was really seeing where a lot of my stuff was as well. So it was a deep dive. It was like a forced isolation that was, looking back now, as you always do, looking back was the best thing.
With the benefit of hindsight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Kayli, I want to just switch it up a bit and jump right back to young Kayli. Were you always interested in astrology?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I don't know if you remember the MySpace days, but I'm a 90s baby. So I had my teenage years in the MySpace days, and I would always share the horoscope stuff constantly on my MySpace. And even when going back to them when I was a kid and we used to have the Ms. magazine, I used to go straight to the back and look at the sign and read it. And I just always knew that I was a Scorpio out of nowhere. I was like, Scorpio. So it was always there looking back for sure. And I was always a bit of a mystical kid, so it was always following me. Yeah.
What is it about astrology that you really connect with, that you really kind of relate to? For people that are listening and maybe don't understand too much about it, like, what is it for you and what does it mean for other people?
I think that a whole chapter of my life of always feeling like, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? As a child, I would always ask like, why are we here? Or I'd ask these big questions. And
deep question.
Yeah. And it was always very similar response to when I came into my true self and went back to my old life. The response was very similar to as a kid, eye rolls, just because, and things like that. So I always just thought there was something wrong with me for either being too deep or big questions and things like that. And then when I discovered astrology, I realized that there is so much more than just your sun sign. There is, your rising sign, your moon sign, your Jupiter, your Mercury, how you speak, everything like this. That as soon as I started doing a deep dive past me just being a Scorpio, I was like, it all makes sense. It was like a reclamation of my soul or a reclamation of myself. And it gave me almost like a permission slip, like the humanness of me, like a permission slip to embody and become my astrology.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because we talked off air, I've always had an interest in my star sign. I remember my mother reading the stars out of the Daily Mirror whenever we were very, very young. And she would always read them out or ask me, did I want to see it? So my interest kind of peaked from a young age at that stage. But your comment about not really knowing yourself or wondering, having the self-doubt and the thoughts about who am I and what am I here for and why am I different from other people and things. I think that's something that, well, I grew up thinking all of my life. Now, I used to put it down because dyslexic, not very clever at school, very shy, very reserved, didn't like talking to people, didn't feel like I could talk to people. There was some things going on in the family, alcoholism and stuff that I thought made me different. But the more I talk to people and the more clients I talk to and the more people I work with, that's a very common theme where people feel like they're not quite the same as everybody else. And in reality, if we think about it, there's very few people are alike. But it sounds very much like you were able to find yourself through astronomy. What advice would you have for other people that may be currently going through something like that, where they're not sure who they are, they feel like they're different, they feel like they've some challenge in their own life? What advice would you have for people out there based on what you've experienced and what you've went through?
Good question. I mean, I feel like there's these moments in life where things land for people in very many ways, whether it's through a certain modality or traveling or whatever. And I would say, one, definitely get your astrology chart read. I think it's the most wonderful deep dive onto your energetics and your soul and your blueprint, who you are, these sorts of things. But I think I'm obviously going to say astrology because that was my path. And I think the reason that I love astrology so much is because it's not very dogma. It's very, you see someone's chart and you can recommend spaces and places where they can put their energy. And that's where the path opens up. That's where everything starts unfolding, you know? For someone like yourself, if you're more, like you say, not a hugely social person, there may be something in your chart that reflects that. And there might be somewhere there's like a spaces and places or modalities that could be sending you in a certain direction versus somebody else. It's very, very fluid and it's very flexible, and there's not like a one size fits all with astrology.
Of course.
So that's why I absolutely personally love it, is because it kind of is the guide, the compass to send you in the directions that's going to help you get through the chapters, because it's not a case of if the storm comes, it's a case of when the storm comes.
Yeah. The storm's coming for everybody. I totally agree. Look, you've got me hooked. You're saying that everybody should have a chart reading. I'm interested to know, what does a chart reading look like for somebody that's, again, apart from whatever was written in the Daily Mirror and the odd time I see my stars now, what does having your charts look like? Well, explain that more to the people that just have no idea.
Yeah. So basically, to get your birth chart read, you need the following details: your date of birth, your time of birth, and the location of birth. And what this basically indicates is where the planets were the particular moment that you came down here. And that's the energetics of then what your map is, so what your cosmic clock inside is. And you can sort of see from there, like, you know, the rising sign, for instance, can sort of really tell a story of how you came down here, like the labor and what you're ruled by. And then, it's a whole journey. It's a whole thing. But basically, you need the details to then go through the chart, go through the map. And there's some people that may have like the same chart because they were born at the same time. And then that's where, you know, the astrology intuition would come from, where you would then use your humanness and your intuition to guide that chart as well.
I'm guessing that's what happens if you don't know the time of birth for somebody like myself. I know the day. I probably know the where. I'm not going to say it on live, that's for sure. But what do we do if we don't know the time?
Yeah, good question. So I have had some people ring up, if you're born in a hospital, I've known some people ring up the hospital and they still have records back from like the 60s, 70s. You may be one of them that's looking to go down that route. Yeah. Or then we can do a thing called a rectification, where you look at like certain things, big chapters that might have happened in your life, and we can sort of go through, a rectification to try and find out what your rising sign is, because it's the rising sign. Yeah. What is the time?
Perfect. Can I ask how long it usually takes?
A reading goes up to about an hour and a half.
Okay. So about an hour and a half. And you get pretty much an outline of where you are, who you are within that hour and a half?
Yeah. It's a deep dive of like who you've always been, and also any astrological transits that might be coming up that can show you where you might be at in the chapter right now.
Very interesting. Very interesting. My mother's back out in December. We may come and visit you at that stage.
Yay! Definitely. Would love that.
For sure. You are in Perth, the same as us, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Kayli, I want to just take you back to the here and now, because tell us where you are currently with what you're doing, what life looks like at the minute. You've went through the transition 2000 to kind of 2023, I think you said. So for the last 3 years, what have you been doing? What does life look like now at the minute? What's the difference, I suppose? This is something I'd be interested in the listeners knowing. It sounds like you've found yourself. You feel very comfortable within yourself. And yes, that's related to astrology. But I know working with other people that once people get to that point, regardless of what tools and methods they use, they usually feel something different. Can you tell us how you're feeling having got to that point? What's the difference in your life now than before the change or the transformation, would you say?
It's almost like now it's a knock-on effect from that big chapter, this big awakening, this big getting to know myself, going into modalities that is healing myself and things like that. And now where I'm at right now is almost like the messy middle, quite honestly, where I'm being initiated now to almost do a round 2 and follow the astrology call fully, because I am still doing hairdressing. I've been doing hairdressing for 18 years. And obviously I was 16 years old when I went into hairdressing. And that's a huge identity. from being a teenager to
Big part of your life.
34.
Yep.
Yeah, that now I am fully going into claiming the identity of becoming the astrologer, and that's my full-time role. That is where I'm stepping into. And with that comes a lot of challenge in terms of, the ego safety of like, oh, you've always done hair and that stability, and is it going to work? Like, there's a lot that's coming up, and there's a lot of like demons that I'm having to work through to chase my dreams. There's the opposing energy of what it feels like to go for your dreams, the expansion and the contraction that I'm having to do behind closed doors.
Yeah. No, I can totally identify with that, having gone through that journey myself twice. I would say big in my life were one, 2012, whenever I give up my company, give up my home, move to Australia to do something totally different in terms of different industry. And then again later in 2020, kind of 3-ish, whenever I decided to walk away from that corporate role and, focus solely on coaching and mentoring people. At that point, it can be quite scary and it can be very challenging. I'm guessing the unknown is part of the challenge for you. I know it certainly was for me. The kind of feeling that, what if I maybe try this and it doesn't work out? So the security is probably another thing that usually it was for me as well. It was something that, what if I try this and it doesn't work out? What if I can't feed ourselves, keep a roof over our heads, support the family? Again, for myself. And they're very common feelings and emotions that come up in people whenever they are trying to make that transition. My advice to anybody would be, put a plan in place and go for it, because it's honestly the best thing that I've ever done in my life. I feel more fulfilled now every day than I ever have in the past, getting to talk to people like yourself on a regular basis, getting to work with our one-on-one clients who are trying to make that change in their life to get to a better place, to the leaders that we work with and the businesses that we work with. I honestly wouldn't change a thing from the decision I made, yet I know at the time how much energy, how much worry, how much stress there was in my life having to go through that transition. How many people told me I was crazy, leaving something that I was good at and something that I knew and something that I was comfortable. And the self-doubt of questioning yourself, this is all I've ever done. What if I'm not as good at doing something different than what I was? So all them thoughts, all them emotions, I would say first and foremost, Kayli, are very normal for anybody to feel. So you're definitely not on your own from that point of view.
Yeah.
I'm happy to spend a couple of minutes if you want and talk about what that looks like for you. Are you okay with that? Are you up for that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I guess what way have you tried to approach that at this stage? What's your thought process whenever you're going, okay, I want to change this aspect of my life. I'm going to move fully into the astronomy. What's your thought process been at that point?
Yeah, there's a big money story that always comes up, like the stability story, the money story. That's the biggest one that comes up, and I try and give myself time and stillness to sit with it. I notice that I do tend to want to, avoid these big feelings, so I give myself the time to sit with it, feel it in my body, and get out of the story and let my body do the speaking. So whether that's like really crying or like really moaning and really like hitting a pillow and things like that, just to move it. And it's often, honestly, always the little girl speaking. It's always the inner child of just, what if I get it wrong? What if what if mum doesn't approve? What if dad doesn't approve? Or what if they think that, oh, there she goes again, being irresponsible with her money. There's all of that. And it's basically just catching myself of like, this is a story. I'm still in a loop. I'm still fighting inside. I'm still in a loop. So it's just about coming back to the little girl and like me being the mother and saying, yeah, I hear you and feel you, and holding her through it, really.
Yeah. I'm interested because what you've said is exactly what you should be doing in terms of recognizing that it's that inner voice, that inner child, talking to it, questioning it. What's the next step that you're going to do? But because that's the part that's really important. If you were a client that I was working with now at the minute and they were telling me, okay, I'm going through this part of my life currently at the moment and I want to try and get to the next part, I'd be asking that question. So you're having that conversation where you say, I recognize, I understand your concerns, they're valid concerns. However, what's the next part of the story?
The next part now is the action taking. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah.
it totally makes sense. The action is the key part.
Yeah, the action taking. So where I'm at right now is I know that I love it. And when I'm in this regulated state right now, I can speak about how much I'm obsessed with it and everything. And it's just before I do the readings, I do have this little moment of resistance coming up where I'm like, oh, I just want to go back to my old life. I just want to go back to my old life. Then I push past and I do the action, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, even before coming on this podcast, I felt the resistance coming up, you know, being like, oh, God, I have to speak about my astrology and my identity and claim it. And I'm like, oh, and it's just action showing up to the podcast, showing up to the readings, making all of the structure and also the support of, you know, people like yourself, Glenn, like, you know, mentors and guides and coaches and things like that. And just knowing that investing in that is what holds you through it all too.
Yeah, Kayli, that little self-doubt is normal. I honestly believe that the difference between people that go on and really do something with their lives and find that alignment and get to that place where their happiness is, they understand that doubt is there, they understand the fears there, but they take the action anyway. I don't know if you've ever heard the like of Tony Robbins or anybody like that speak, but Tony talks about burning the boats, where we leave our old life behind, we cut down all the bridges so there's no way back, there's no retreat. And that was something that I did, and I had no choice. Now, for the first year that I left my job, I turned down 5 other positions that I could have walked back into in a time where, you know, I'd walked away from a salary of over 350,000 to an unknown amount of salary where I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from. And I could have stayed in the job and tried to do it and, you know, put half of my energy in, half my energy not. But I'm one of them people that whenever I'm doing something, I'm full in, I can't do half of it. So it felt like that wouldn't work for me. So I had to kind of burn the boats and say to the business, look, I'm sorry, I'm out of here. My new life looks like this. But again, for people that are there, maybe they want to have that little bit more security. Maybe they want to have that little bit more of time to get that process. Being able to give yourself a deadline and say, okay, I know within the next year, I have enough money saved to get me through 6 months to give this a real chance of working. So having a plan and not burning the boats is, again, totally an acceptable way to do it. But taking the action is the main point. So having a plan, putting dates on it, putting maybe a quantity of how much you want to have saved, what other things you might need in place, like how many clients you might need coming in, things like that. But the more detail you can put into that plan and then take the action toward it is the things that, as I say, it's the difference between the people that wish they could make their life better and the people that actually make their life better, if that makes sense. The fear, the doubt, the questioning yourself, that's there for everybody. So that part's the same for everybody. It's the taking action part, as you said, that's different for everybody.
That's it. That's exactly it, Glenn. And you know, I feel like even when you have them moments where you know you've got to, it's like you'll keep doing the old thing. You know, for me, like for the last 3 years, I have kept myself in my hairdressing job, and it's now getting to the point where it's too loud. So I think there's almost moments where you know, and you might procrastinate until your body starts speaking, until it gets so unbearable that then you are initiated into that masculine structure of, like you say, a plan and how long the savings is going to last and walking into it.
Kayli, I'm really glad you said that, because for me, I talked about doing coaching, leadership. I was doing endurance coaching from 2003 with a few clients. And I talked about it for nearly 10, 15 years before I actually, you know, and it was, for me, it was a moment whenever I realized that one of your best friends tells you he's got 6 months to live. For me, that was the thing that really changed me. Whenever you know that tomorrow's not guaranteed, we're not sure what tomorrow's going to bring. That was the thing that tipped me over the edge. You just said you've spent the last 3 years kind of, well, I won't die, but there's nothing to say you have another 3 years would be my advice to you.
Yeah, you just give me goosebumps.
I'm not here to push your life one way or another, but
no, it's good.
I suppose once I realized that the most precious thing we have in life is time, then it's about how we use that time that makes a difference in the quality of our life.
Yeah, for sure. That's it. Yeah, so I always have that moment.
Sorry, go ahead, Kayli.
I always have that moment, like fearing that if I'm on my deathbed, I didn't really give it a go. Like that's always my biggest motivator.
Yeah. So let me ask you then, and again, I don't mean to turn this into a coaching session by any stretch of the imagination. If I asked you what is a timeline for you to make that total change, what would you say is comfortable for you?
Well, I'm going to walk through the fire in 3 months' time, where I'm fully pulling the plug on her.
Brilliant. I
I
love it.
am moving down south to Margaret River, and I'm going
Lovely
to
part
go
of the world.
all in with astrology, and I've given myself 4 months worth of stability savings to
Excellent.
go all in, and it just has to work.
It will work.
It will work.
Because again, remember the journey that you start out on now doesn't have to be it forever. So you'll find a way to make it work. The only thing that you really need at this point, now that you've made the decision, is what? Do you want to hazard a guess?
Structure.
Structure will be good. Structure will be beneficial. It'll be useful. It'll help you get through things, but not where I was thinking.
Yeah, go on.
Belief.
Yes.
So you're taking the action, but the belief is the difference, because once you believe you can really do something, no matter, and again, that's where the power of the burning the boats thing comes from. But once you believe that this is the only option, this is the only thing that you want to do, and the only thing that you will be fulfilled in, you'll find a way to make it work. The hows, the buts, the maybes will come, but that belief is the real key factor for you. And it sounds like you just have to give yourself a little bit more belief.
Thanks, Glenn. That's perfect. It's a Sagittarius full moon in 2 days, isn't it? Sag is all around belief, dreams, coming from the Sag himself.
We're a bunch of dreamers. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. I love a Sagittarius.
No, look, I honestly believe, Kayli, that this goes for you, because obviously we've had nearly an hour now talking and getting to know each other. But I truly believe that no matter what you do, you'll be totally amazing at it. You have that energy, you have that belief in yourself, and you know that you're already started this journey. It's just a case of following the journey now and continuing on in it. But for other people that are out there at the moment, and they might be listening to this, and maybe it's astrology, or maybe it's something totally different that their passion is, or something they're not happy. For me, it sounds like you realized first and foremost that your starting point during COVID was that you weren't truly happy, that things wasn't sitting right. And that started your journey. And that's what it is for most people. Somebody will be sitting listening to this today, and they'll be thinking, I'm not happy with where my life is at the moment. And starting to look and experience, okay, what does make me happy? For you, it was astrology. For me, it's helping other people get to where they want to go. For somebody else, it might be, I don't know, singing or dancing or whatever the passion is. But once they realize what that is, being able to find a way that you can do more of it. Because ultimately, if I asked you, what does astrology really give to you? What is it that you have now that you maybe hadn't got back then?
Liberation and authenticity to honestly just be me, exactly how I'm designed to be. Authenticity is the biggest one for me. Yeah.
What do you get from that authenticity, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. A flow of energy, and the right people, everything on the outside is giving you information.
What emotion would you say it is, Kayli? If you had to put emotion to it.
Like a free feeling.
Okay.
And
like
light.
A freeness.
A free, light, confident energy. Yeah.
I like that. I really like that. As I say, I've worked with hundreds of clients now, and most people are looking for a few things. I've come to realize, maybe this falls into one of yours, but it's that happiness, that contentment, that feeling free is a really good way to put it, right? They're like, some people think if I can get a job promotion, it'll give me this. Some people think if I have a bigger house, it'll give me happiness. It'll make me feel fulfilled. So there's always something that we're searching for that we think will bring us to the other point. But it sounds very much like that freeness, that space that you're currently in with your authentic self. It sounds very peaceful. Yeah. And I'm guessing you're quite happy to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And how it really does reflect on the outside as well. You know, like I've got the most beautiful friendships that I've never had before in my whole entire life. That liberation and self and freedom is transferred into the groups, into the people, into my friends and everywhere else, my home, everything, you know?
Yeah, so it transcends across all aspects of life. I know that's what it found for me. Kayli, as I said, people listening at the moment, I think you're a true inspiration to people out there that are going to be stuck in this position where they haven't got that happiness, they haven't got that contentment, they haven't got that freeness or that authenticity. And you being able to take the time today to come on to share your story certainly leaves them understanding that first and foremost, they're probably not alone, but that there is a way that they can get through it. If you had to give them people kind of one piece of advice now at this stage, what would it be?
I feel like environment is just such an important thing. Putting yourself in the right environment where your people will be, and they may be reflecting a very similar journey to you, so you feel less alone. Environments. Keep it simple. don't go to dream big. And if you're in so much storm within yourself, go to the right environments and the storm will pass with people.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. All storms do pass. You're very true, Kayli. That is such a very powerful statement. It is a case of continue to try and move forward, find that support, find that help. As you said, find them people that you can relate to and move forward. Kayli, for our people that are listening, where can they find you? How can they get a hold of you? Are you happy if people reach out and connect directly with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're best finding me on Instagram, Kayli Halliwell Astrology. And if you're in Perth, Australia, I am doing readings 3 times a week.
Brilliant.
But mainly moving on to online Zoom readings.
Nice. I really like that. Kayli, I encourage everybody to reach out, to leave the comments and to get to know your work a lot better. I have no doubt that you go on to do amazing things. I know that definitely December, January time, whenever my mother's visiting, we will make a point of giving you a shout. I might even get my wife talked into it too. And I really do appreciate your time for coming on to the show. Would you be open to keeping in touch with the channel, sharing the content, reaching out with people, coming back on again in the future?
Yeah, absolutely, Glenn. I would be, yeah, for sure. And I'll be sharing this. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, it's been our pleasure. And I do wish you all the best in the future. I have no doubt that you will go on and you'll make a very positive impact to a lot of people's lives.
Thanks, Glenn.
And now for the legal part. I'm not a registered mental health professional. I'm just some guy who has gone through life, has dealt with a lot of issues, and that has really wanted to move his life from where it was to where he wanted to go. And along that journey, with my own personal development, with my own growth, I've done a lot of research and studying into what it takes to get us to a better place, what it took to get me to a better place. I've also done a certificate in results coaching that qualifies me to coach other people in terms of improving their lives. But I want to stress, regardless of whether you go to a mental health professional or whether you go and talk to a friend down the road or whether you reach out to the Feck No More team, the onus is definitely on you to help improve your life. And I want to thank you for showing up today, for listening, for getting involved. That shows that you care about your growth and your development and getting you to a better place. And I really appreciate the time that you have taken to reach out. So until the next time, I'll be waiting. I'll be available to help, support, as I know majority of our community will be too. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for you showing up.